Okay, so final question. Most underrated player in the league at the present time. We will go through, give some thoughts on this because I think there's a lot of players. I think people maybe straight away you think, like Illy or something, but obviously Illy's got a lot of gas, right? So community perception, I feel like a lot of the optic guys, phase guys, they're probably at the point where they're not considered underrated. These are probably players, to me, an underrated player is someone on a team that's actually performing well. Like, if I think of a guy like, I don't know, if I look at, I mean, even if I look at Paris and I say John, like, I don't think maybe he is somewhat underrated in the thing that people seem to think he's absolutely terrible, and he's not actually terrible. But I don't really care about players like that. I'm more interested in teams that are doing well, and there's players on the teams that are way more impactful on the success of that team than they get credit for. So there's some good answers in the chat here. I won't be going first. I will kind of say I have maybe two names. Austin, you're up first.
I think Zenny. Honestly, I think Zenny went from a guy that just kind of filled the lanes in the back, like that lane player, to being. Yeah, I mean, he has a 1.28 KD this stage. That's third highest. He's barely behind Awakening. He's a couple ticks behind Dashy, but he has a 1.28. It's got to be one of the highest. He has the third highest hard point, and I believe he has the highest S&D KD. Yeah, 1.72, highest S&D KD in the league. He's been playing phenomenal. I'll have to give it to him because usually you don't expect him to be putting up superstar numbers, but also he's very capable of it, and that's what he's been doing so far this stage.
Yeah, I agree with that. I probably would have gone for the same, Zenny, but
yeah, I think it's interesting to me because you're right, but I feel like Zenny's been getting a lot of gas the last like 2 weeks. I would say he's almost got enough gas. And people saying it in the chat as well, like people's first instinct was to say methodz. And if the first instinct to say methodz tells me he's not actually underrated because he's getting the credit he deserves. But that's just, it's just my take.
Maybe Dav Patty? I feel like Dav Patty's on this Florida team that's not like the superstar, quote unquote, that the other three are. But he's also doing his role really well, and it's allowing the other players to kind of do their thing. Like I've seen Skies has a 1.22 this stage, Awakening has a 1.29. Dav Patty's actually done his role then. I guess he doesn't have like the flashy stats, but I believe he's positive he's positive in every single mode. He's doing what needs to be done in the Florida backline. I guess he would be someone that you wouldn't expect to get so much praise, but I kind of like him.
Yeah, I think.
What do you reckon, Mike?
Yeah, I agree with Austin both of his takes. I think this year, the players that are on like top teams are all getting gas, like regardless of their stats. So like you can look at players like Nasty. I think he's getting like a lot of gas, but he's got like a 1 KD for the year. But it's because he's on such a good team and he's playing his role so well. So I
Only
think
1v4.
Yeah, exactly. It was amazing. I think this year the scene is starting to like grow perspective wise. Like the fans are actually understanding the good players and like giving gas to the correct people as opposed to KD. And I think that at Breaking Point we should take credit for that because we're the ones that are pushing the KD narrative so hard that people are ignoring it.
I like that logic. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, you're right though, bro. Like you would say Trey, but Trey gets a lot of gas. I would say like Trey's been that leader for London that's been pushing him up, but he gets a lot of gas. Asom's been getting a lot of gas. I've been seeing a lot of both the rookies on Boston get a lot of gas. Like they've been doing great. It's really weird. Like it's actually been spot on a lot of the gas this year. Usually it's like a little bit like you're missing some of the key players, but I mean, I feel like almost every role player in the league right now is actually getting a lot of gas, which I love. I love it how people are acknowledging like the star role players who are actually enabling their superstar players to play well, and I love that, honestly.
Yeah,
it's probably true.
An underrated player, in my opinion, right now. But Zen and not Capsital, Dav Patty are probably the two that I would say are most underrated.
The two that I had in my head, DNA 111 hit the nail on the head. Because I know you said Nasty. Yes, he had the 1v4, but I feel like I don't feel like people have talked about Nasty basically at all. Like because he gets overshadowed by every other player on the team. People even forget he's on there. But like when Paulex was in the team instead of Gizmo, Nasty is the guy dropping insane numbers. And I remember, I think it was back at the start of, this is a weird thing that my brain just came up with, but the start of Black Ops 4 when Dashi couldn't make it to the Pro League and Karma had to fill in. And we saw like at the start of the year and for the rest of the year, Dashi was like doing a lot of the slaying. But when Dashi wasn't there and Zuma was there, sorry, did I say Karma?
Yeah, it was Zuma, right?
Yeah. Zuma had to fill in, and Zuma filled in, but Karma like took over the slaying when Dashi wasn't there. Like he just really turned it on, and it just shows that like what Karma does on the team usually was very impactful to their success. But when he was put into a more slaying role, he could actually take over in that sense. So to me, I think Nasty is probably underrated just because Afro, Zero, and Gizmo all get a lot of gas and they're a top 3 team in the game. And barely anyone talks about what Nasty does to enable that. The other name that I had, which I think is maybe not so true anymore, just based on because people have been starting to give him a bit of gas, but I would have said certainly last week, I would certainly have said that Nero was underrated because the start of the year, and I think that's still the case to a degree, because I think because all the gas is around Capsule, right? Everyone talks about, this is like the way I look at underrated is like a team that's doing well, but one of their players isn't getting the credit they deserve. Even maybe TJ goes into this category, to be honest, but I feel like he's been getting some credit. But Nero definitely at the start of the year, he had a tough time, and I wasn't convinced at all, to be perfectly honest. But the amount of engagements he has and the amount of impact he has on some of these maps is incredible. Like he's a great player to watch play, really fun. Makes a great pairing to Cap, and like Capsule gets a lot of the credit and the gas because maybe he has a bigger personality and like he's people just talk about him more. He has more highlight moments, maybe. But I think Nero is probably equally as impactful to their success right now. And honestly, since Nero turned it on, like that's when they've really charged up the ladder, to be honest. Because the other guys have been pretty consistent all the time. So
that Boston team, just as a whole, like every time they win too, people are just like they always knock it or always say like, I don't know. Every time it feels like you put Boston high in the power rankings, it's like people are just like you're overrating them, and it's like
it still feels weird, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just because they don't have any players that are like, they don't have any players that you feel like would be in the top 4 before the season begins, you know. And because they formed their team last minute, it feels somewhat strange to put them up there, given what you expected the top 4 to be. But it's fun when this type of stuff happens.
I think that narrative though around them is changing, like especially this stage. Like I feel like they're genuinely top 4 now, like 4th.
I think they have to be. I don't know who goes above them. Like it has to be London, Boston.
London,
like
right?
I can't. Like, but then after FaZe Optic, like no one becomes between London and like it has to be that 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't see how anyone can be above those 4.
LA Thieves before, but after the major, they've kind of crumbled, and then
it was Toronto above Boston, but now that can't be the case.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And then Toronto, like arguably, is right there with them, but below them right now. And then the only other team you can really argue is actually, I would say Florida has been charging up the power rankings the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So Florida can keep it up, like,
Maybe
but like
Florida
right now,
6th right now, to be honest.
it's the power rankings in that like I would say like 5 to 8 is in a very weird spot right now, where it could literally change any of those 4 teams, no matter like within like a week, you know. So this major will be pretty telling about who kind of stumbles out of the gates, you know.